And so I just want to acknowledge Comrade Jesse Todd, who as an older person here, became a lifetime member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, even when leaders of the government were looking at us strangely and threateningly. And so I wanted to make that acknowledgement. And also, I had desired to be on that march and at the rally on yesterday, but I did not do that because people who are associated with the security process in our movement stated that they thought it would be a problem for me. And this was especially true after the September 11th assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. And the thing that made that significant is the fact that it was something that highlighted the fact that political violence is something that is increasingly acceptable in this country. That more and more you see people who are willing to engage in political violence, and that it is not only that it's generally acceptable, but it's something that the leaders of this country also promote and give a vindication for it. So that's the thing that made it significant. And I'm not quite sure if I'll not come to another event based on that. But immediately after that, that was an issue. I wanted to say that that something is happening here that we need to understand, even the ruling class. I was looking at just yesterday from Foreign Affairs, which is a journal of the ruling class in this country. It was something that even Lenin has written for it, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly he has read it. And W.E. Du Bois has written for it. It's a ruling class journal. It's the means by which the thinking representative of the colonial powers in the world share their ideas and promote the way forward for the social system itself. It's faced with a dilemma, even Foreign Affairs, just as the whole social system is faced with a dilemma. But in an article from 2024, it talked about how violence is becoming the Foreign Affairs Journal, as I mentioned, is a journal of thinking representatives of the ruling class. There are people in this room and in this meeting, I'm sure, who are familiar with Machiavelli. Machiavelli, of course, was someone who wrote the thing called The Prince. And he was one of people of that era who wrote and tried to influence the leaders. I think it was the Medici. Was it Medici? Yes. It tried to influence them. And he wrote this thing called The Prince. Well, there are people who are engaged in this kind of work right now. People who we know of like Brzezinski, people who we know of like Kissinger, and others. They write to provide leadership. These are thinking representative of the ruling class that we're talking about. That's their job, to think and to provide ideas and suggestions about how the social system can carry out its mission for continuing domination of the world. And this was something that was initiated primarily by the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers were central to this foreign affairs and to the creation of this entity that was called the Trilateral Commission or the Trilateral Committee. It's either committee or commission. And the Trilateral Europe, America, and Japan, I think, constituted the trilateral, the relationships. These are the colonial powers. And so I wanted to say that this article deals with the growing acceptance of violence, political violence here inside this country. And I just want to share just a couple of excerpts. They're not that long. The writer is somebody who is also engaged in doing work polling and stuff like that to build his political conclusions and strategy around. He says that according to new research carried out by my team at the University of Chicago, tens of millions of Democrats, Republicans, and independents believe that political violence is acceptable. So it's just general unity with political violence. Many of them hail from the middle and upper class with nice homes and college education. The country's fight over its national identity, this is what he ascribes much of this being about, the fight over the national identity of the country. The country's fight over its national identity has multiple dimensions, but the most serious is demographic change. In 1990, 76% of the US population identified as white. In 2023, the US Census Bureau put that figure at a little over 58%. A decade later, by 2035, the share is set to fall to 54%. A decade later, it will dip below 50%. These changes have led to rising anger among conservatives, many of whom see increased ethnic so-called diversity as an existential threat to their way of life. So here you will not, what did it say? This whole notion of disappear us or replace us kind of thing. This whole thing of replacement theory. Actually, I was going to make a horrible joke, and my wife really doesn't like for me to make jokes like this. These voters have embraced Trump and his nationalist movement, which promised to stop such change in its tracks. Trump's exclusionary policies and rhetoric have in turn prompted a ferocious backlash from liberals. I haven't seen that yet, but who embrace demographic change, or who at least fear that conservative success will cost Americans hard-won freedoms. So this whole notion of disappearance is a real critical thing. I remember having Huey P. Newton many years ago at an event that we did, maybe 85. He was killed in 89, wasn't he? So we had him at the Uhuru house before he was killed. And he was talking about, how the white people in general, and he said he may have got this from a discussion with his older brother, was having a problem because of disappearing. And as you know, in 2019 or 2020, at this meeting where was this in Germany? They meet annually. Say it again. Okay. Say it again. Munich conference, where the bigwigs, you don't get invitations to this. But prime ministers, presidents, really serious people, Zuckerberg was there, all kinds of people. And they raised the question at this meeting then, and I reported on in a meeting perhaps similar to this. They talked about approaching whitlessness, the disappearance of the West So this thing that they like to attribute to right-wing crazies about the replacement theory, they're talking about this in Munich among the most significant forces who are determining the future of the world. That's what they come there on a regular basis to do. Whitlessness. And when they say whitlessness, they include in Australia, the Netherlands, Canada, they include, it's whitelessness is what they're really talking about. And I just think that's really important that this has been a central issue that they've been dealing with for a long time. And even if it's not addressed as we are addressing it now, it's been there. It's been part of the reason that people have bombed abortion clinics, killed abortion doctors, threatened and to put women back in chains so that you can keep making white babies. Because a fundamental contradiction, an aspect of this contradiction, is that white women are not having enough babies to even keep the white population at the level that it's at right now. That's not just in the United States, that's throughout Europe. So you see a decline in the white population. And it seems like, I'm about to tell another joke. My wife is shaking her head because she knows that it's not going to be a good joke. So just another brief quote, excerpt from this. This is from Foreign Affairs, and people should look at it. I sort of keep up with stuff that's happening in it because they try to make predictions on how the world is moving. The last thing that I have, they talked about how the committee to run the world. This is what they got on the lead article is the committee to run the world. And on this committee to run the world, they have pictures of Trump sort of on top. And then they have Putin on one side and Xi from China on the other side. So this is the committee to run the world. This is how they're considering things. They see the world as something that's going to be governed, led by these forces. The people have no role in it. They don't even mention Africa. They don't even consider Africa as a factor in this at all. So this is how they think. This is how they see the world. And of course, this is the Achilles heel, if you can accept that characterization. So the anger on both sides is in keeping with historical precedents. Scholars have long understood that Scholars have long understood that social change and demographic shifts are potent catalysts for violence. And as elsewhere, even that's a mischaracterization of the contradiction. By whom? Potent catalysts for, they don't say that Black people are going to rise up because the population shift that's happening in this country. Look out for the Mexicans and what have you because of the population shift. No. What they're talking about is white people, colonizers, having a problem. So they said, and as elsewhere, the turn toward force in the United States is fundamentally populist in nature. The millions of Americans who support political violence have concluded that their country's elites are so thoroughly corrupt and that their democracy is so completely broken that riots, political assassinations, and coercive attacks are acceptable and even necessary to bring about the supposedly genuine democracy that people deserve. This kind of thinking is endemic to all kinds of populist movements in which people angrily latch onto a political leader, party, or movement to overcome the so-called establishment. I think it's really important because it is true. There's an aspect of truth contained in what they are defining here. Because usually it is not unusual for African people to conclude the system does not serve us. That's from the very beginning, that's what Nat Turner was about. That's what getting away from slavery was all about. This is not for us. And so breaking from that has been that's what we're looking at when we saw the pictures of Haiti and the history there. This doesn't serve us. So you see Africans in Haiti breaking free from that, but you see French, who are the colonizers, demanding to be paid for for Africans trying to break free. So this is something that oppressed people in these societies have concluded a long time ago, which is a statement about the significance of the movement of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey started his organization in 1914. And how many years after the legal end of slavery was that? That means, come on, calculator. The 1865 is when slavery was officially over. So by 1914, you have Garvey out of Jamaica. And then he comes to this country, I think, in 19, no, earlier than that. But he comes to this country, builds this extraordinary movement of millions of African people from around the world who are saying this system does not serve us. And so they are declaring Africa for Africans at home and abroad. Africans for Africans everywhere on the planet Earth. Africa is our solution. And he began to build institutions that would negate the capacity of the colonizers wherever we were located to control us. That's why we had steamship lines, had factories, we had our own dolls and recording studios, all kinds of things. This is a negation of colonial power. And this is why they framed up Garvey, and who had got a steamship line and said that he broke the law because somehow he used the mail to defraud the public because he sold stock to African people for this steamship line. So there's this history, a tradition of African people doing that. There is some history and tradition of white people trying to break free from the system too at different times. Civil War was one example of that. And there are other instances when that happened. But in recent history, it has not been so prevalent, even though you've got gangs of thugs running around in military fatigues and stuff like that and training. You saw them when Obama was running for office, sometimes coming to campaign rallies carrying weapons and things like that. You saw all of that. So there is something that was happening among white people too. But now, they have been without a general leadership up until now. That is recently. Now we see Trump, who provides the general leadership. The president of the United States is providing general leadership for white thugs and mobsters and white people who feel like they're being threatened. And there is no solution to this because we're going to keep making babies. You can't put enough prisons, and that's part of what the prison population is about. It's a form of birth control that's imposed on the African population to keep us from making babies. So they don't have a solution for this. That's what kicking all the immigrants is all about, because they are settlers. This country is a settler colony. And for settlers, you've taken somebody's land, you occupy the land and territory, then you don't want anybody else to come here. I remember in New Zealand where they would not allow anybody to come into New Zealand who was not white. And they were trying to recruit white people, come to New Zealand. They are settlers. And because they are settlers, anybody coming into the country is a problem. And the whole system that people identify as capitalist system is founded on settlers, settler colonialism, United States being a primary and perhaps an originator of settler colonialism. And then tell me a place where so-called capitalism is successful that did not have as its basis settler colonialism. Settler colonialism, stealing people's land, stealing people's resources, and not just stealing the land, but occupying the territory and taking the goods and resources that are there. That's what we're looking at. And they don't have a solution for that. What is the solution for that? What are they going to do at the next Munich conference that's resolved that contradiction? And the fact is that there is no solution. And this is not something that concerns so-called conservatives. Liberals too are frightened about the idea of growing up. That's why your property values go down when Africans move into a liberal white community or what used to be a liberal white community. That's why all of that stuff happens, because liberals too, settlers, have a problem with growing numbers of people. And the thing is that people have been confused is because historically in the past, when people talked about colonialism, they talk about England coming to the United States. They talk about France going to Haiti and things like that. And initially the objective was to come here and to get resources and send back to England, what they call the mother country, or send back to France, which was the mother country, or send back to Belgium, which was the mother country. I call them a mother something else, but that's another story. But the fact is they stayed. And so you have this colonialism that's changed its character, its nature even. So now you've got colonizers who now define themselves globally as white. The whole concept of whiteness, white people, Europe has its origin in slavery and colonialism. Was no such thing as white people as a people until colonialism and slavery. Was no such thing as Europe, except until of slavery and colonialism. Enslavement of Africa is another. This is the thing that gave them identity. This is part of the superstructure, if you will, the ideological foundation. What have we said about racism? It is what? The ideological what? Underpinning of the whole social system. So people learn how to think based on how they live, based on the reality, based on how they extract, based on how they get their resources to live, etc. This is what creates the superstructure, the ideology, the philosophy that's born of this situation. That's why, early on, it used to blow my mind because I'm reading Marx, I'm reading Engels. And Engels, by the way, who lived with a woman, an Irish woman, he may have married her, I don't remember, but I know he lived with her for a long time. And he described the Irish in horribly negative ways. I said, wait a minute, this guy's living with, but why? Because England was doing what? Had colonized Ireland. And Ireland was one of those places, been a long-standing colony for a long, and it informed his consciousness too. As bright and brilliant as he was, his consciousness was informed by this objective material relationship that England had with the Irish and et cetera. So these are factors that we're dealing with. I'm so happy about this conference today, this meeting on today. One of the things that makes it really important is that it puts into context the question of reparations. Because reparations is not somebody just doing a damn good deed. Reparations is negating colonialism. But not only is it negating colonialism, it's populism, if you will. They're talking about populism. We're getting masses of people to unite with this project, massive white people. We're the only force that's ever done this in history. You had Callie House, a long time ago. You had Marcus, you had other people who were talking about reparations, but usually reparations has been seen as a black thing. So only black people, the black movement talk about reparations. We're saying that there's no way to deal with the world as it really is without there being a mass demand. And this is the opportunity for white people, colonizers, settlers, in this instance, but colonizers in every instance, to make a self-criticism for the peoples of the world, because their brains have been warped by this relationship that we have. Because every day, everything that they see in the world validates this assumption, negative assumption they have about black people. I know we must be superior. That's why every time I see an African is out here poor, begging, or the ones who come to clean my house or do these other kinds of things, this is clear material evidence of the superiority of white people versus African people, et cetera. This is a magnificent opportunity that we are offering people to deal with this question, and we're taking the vanguard on this for the first time in history. So this is a critical moment. This is why this is important. So reparations is not just doing somebody a favor, it's doing your ass a favor. I mean, to the extent when you understand that when we talk about reparations as a mode of production, not just as a policy by Israel, which is an illegitimate white nationalist, it's an illegitimate white nationalist extension of colonial power. It is the abandonment of the struggle for socialism by European Jews who had the same opportunity as Jews who were in Russia, and instead built a revolutionary organization, revolutionary party, the same opportunity as Trotsky, the same opportunity as others who united with the revolution. Instead, they united with colonialism and decided they're going to take Palestinian land and what have you. And this is the kind of stuff that we, like we are dealing with. So this is, we have this splendid opportunity now. And I want us to take advantage of this opportunity. And there is no cure inside this system. So what we are doing now is negating colonialism. Reparations goes toward even the investment company that's bringing resources to the colonized to negate the authority and ability of the colonizer to continue controlling us. Reparations is what you see up and down West Florissant. It's negating colonialism. Look at why they would spend 9 months before you can open up a damn bakery cafe in a location that for 20 years has been dealing with food and what have you. Well, look at what they would do at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on July 29, 2022. Come with armored vehicles and things like that. Look at how we've already affected the north side of St. Louis. How more people now coming in to the north side of St. Louis. And look at how the reality is that what we were doing was impacting on this national geospatial intelligence entity that's changing that was challenging, deepening the impoverishment of African people, deepening the drive of African people out of St. Louis, taking properties, et cetera, using the power of eminent domain, which is the government, et cetera, to take property from the people. And in the process of doing that, taking 2,000 acres and where Africans are being pushed out. There have been 30,000 Africans being pushed out of North St. Louis in the last something like 10 years. 30,000. And how many have been pushed out since the tornado? And how few would have been pushed out if just the Todd plan that Jesse Todd put forth. Jesse, I don't know if you know it, but that was why the Todd plan couldn't work. Because the Todd plan was negating colonialism. That's why not that it couldn't work, but why it was so hard to get support, because the people who pay, the other people who were all the persons demanded the conditions that we are confronted with now. How much better off would North St. Louis be if they had not intervened in the work that we were doing? If they had not tried to put us in prison for 15 years, if they had not talked about you're going to pay $250,000, if they had not spent so much spying and things on us that the equivalent of something like 2.5 million books is the stuff that they had taken from us. Look at where could those resources have gone to? If those resources had united with Black Power blueprint, because it is a blueprint for Black Power. And that's the contradiction. And I appreciate something that one of our comrades said the other day. All of the economic development work that we are doing should be a part of the blueprint for Black Power. Whether that's St. Petersburg, Florida, whether that's wherever we are engaged in doing this, it is Black Power blueprint. So that's, and I want to say this finally, and to appreciate everybody who's here, either virtually or in this room right now, because they have no solution for this, but we do. But in order for this solution to be meaningful, we are going to have to stop and really promote our understanding that America has nothing for us. That the Dred Scott decision, I said it from the first time I read it. I had never read it, I just heard about it. When I read the Dred Scott decision, I said, that's good law. That is good law. The liberals hated it because they wanted everybody to be brought into this fanciful notion that we all gonna be the same and et cetera. That was good law. He said Black people were not brought here to vote and to do all this other stuff, brought here to be enslaved. He gave the historical background for it and said they have no rights that white people have to respect. That was good law based on the whole trajectory that brought us here and put us in this location in the first place. So they sent in National Guards into our communities. What we just saw with the assassination of Charles Kirk, and how it unleashed all kinds of stuff throughout the white communities, where the liberals are too timid to even say who this guy Kirk really was, and how he had the horrible things and invited violence and oppression of Africans and other people. The liberals are too timid to say it because he's dead now. Yeah, and not he's dead, but he's dead now, etc. Everybody dies. There's nothing peculiar about that. And to have us to be, crying crocodile tears because he's dead, that's ridiculous. But the point is that his assassination, you see, has led to all kinds of popular figures who now are saying disregard laws, disregard even colonial bourgeois law, kick everybody else, put everybody in prison who's not white. This is the line that's coming out now. So what do? What the hell do we do? What we do is pronounce, is to dig in and promote what we've understood as African people, that we have to have independence as a people. There is no freedom inside the system for us, so we fight for independence. And the part of the fight for independence does exactly what we've been doing. It negates the colonial authority. It negates their influence by growing our own influence. Because the fact is that freedom is not something you get on one day. We begin the process of constructing freedom. We construct our way out of this enslavement. We do that ourselves. And I think that's really something important for us. I'm really struggling to be able to say this more effectively. But we fight for democracy. And my fight is not that they don't believe that we call it. I think we have to raise the colonial question. I think raising the colonial question is really important because it makes it possible because that gives science to the thing. Even for the most backwards white person can understand the science and logic of it, as opposed to when you start asking them to fight against racism, which presupposes that they have to fight against themselves. I'm not asking you to fight against yourself. I'm asking you to unite that African people who are colonized, we should have self-determination. You say you got self-determination, we want self-determination too. And that's the kind of thing that we are talking about. So we have to make that struggle. We have to fight for democracy and promote democratic stuff, because that's what they're trying to take from. That's the hands off Uhuru. We have to go ahead and build with the hands off Uhuru the campaign to get rid of this foreign agent registration law, to get rid of these laws that will allow them to imprison people for what you think, which is the conspiracy laws. We have to support the upcoming next weekend. Everybody here should register to become a part of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement Convention that's going to be happening right here in St. Louis.